Record. Right, I'm joined by Matt from Fulham Focus. First of all, Matt, thank you for coming on.
Pleasure. Thanks, Harry.
Before we get into the game, mate, I just want to ask you how you expected this season to go for Fulham, and has it gone as expected?
Difficult one to answer, really, because of the quick turnaround time after the playoff final, given the state of the world at the moment and the state of last season. We didn't know if we were going to be promoted or not. Then we were. Then there was just no turnaround time to get players in. So we had to start this season with the players that we had from last season, who arguably just about got us up from the Championship, but weren't necessarily good enough for the Premier League, which is exactly the same conundrum that we faced when we came up with you 2 years ago. And our transfer policy very much relies on loan players. So we had the likes of Anthony Knockaert in the Championship last season. We signed him in the summer because we must have had to, based on the agreement that we had. Paid 10 million for him and immediately shipped him out on loan to Nottingham Forest. So we obviously didn't want him for the Premier League. It's a crazy kind of scenario that we find ourselves in. So to answer your question, how did I expect this season to go? I thought we'd struggle. And we started really poorly. We were conceding goals, but then we tightened things up. I think there was a gap between the start of the season and the transfer window or the transfer deadline day. We brought in some defenders on transfer deadline day, and they've been very good. Joachim Andersen, Danish international centre-half. We brought in Toshin Adarabioyo from Man City as well. And those two have formed an outstanding central defensive partnership over the last few months. But we just struggled to score goals, and we haven't helped ourselves by leaving Alexander Mitrović on the bench for most of the season. So I guess I thought we'd struggle this season, but we're still in it at the moment. We're still in with a chance of staying up. So that's a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, you mentioned Mitrović there. He's always give us problems, particularly Connor Cody. Is he the one we should look out for? Is it Lookman? You've got a few decent players in there, I'd say. Are they the two, or is there anyone else we should look out for?
Well, Ademola Lookman went off injured against Villa on Sunday, so I don't know if he'll be available. He's a bit hot and cold, doesn't always make the right decision, but he's very skillful, very quick, and a decent player. But yeah, I'd say Mitrović at the moment, he's in form. He scored 5 goals for Serbia in the last international break, 5 goals in 3 games, having not scored for them for a while. Plus, he missed the penalty a few months ago that meant that they missed out on the Euros in place of Scotland. So his form was just all over the place. His confidence was shot, and he wasn't getting in our team, a team that couldn't score goals anyway. You know, we've been crying out for just playing, for goodness sake. He knows where the net is, but so he started on Sunday and he scored against Villa. And we're going to have to rely on him to get us out of this mess, to be honest, I think, if we're going to.
Oh, God. Right, from the outside looking in, from your perspective, what's your opinion on Wolves? I don't know how much you've watched of us, but what do you think, like, looking at us from the outside?
I watched the first half of your game against West Ham earlier in the week, and I don't know whether Wolves were just poor or whether West Ham were just really good. I've been surprised, actually, with how average you've been this season, because I think you're a good side, particularly last season, really, really good, having come up from the Championship. It wasn't last season, it was 2 seasons ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I thought you looked outstanding that season. Europa League had quite a good run in the Europa League last season, but yeah, this season it just hasn't really happened for you, has it? But maybe it's just a season of consolidation for you. But I like your manager. And I think I'm old enough to remember when, Wolves were a bit of a yo-yo side sort of 10, 15 years ago. And you just thought as soon as Wolves come up, they're probably going to be one of those first names that are going to go back down again. So that's one relegation place filled, one less that we have to worry about. But you're a very, very different animal these days. And okay, you've probably underachieved this season, but you're still fine. And we're looking up at you from our position, thinking we'd love to be you at the moment in your position. So.
Yeah, it's strange because when we beat you at Molineux earlier on in the season, it was 1-0, wasn't it? I believe
it was. Yeah.
I remember back then we were so disappointed with that result because we still had ambitions of trying to push for the top 6 again. It's just crazy how it's turned out. We're struggling down. I mean, if you would have because when you went 1-0 up against Villa, I was really worried because you'd have only been 6 points behind us, I think, if you'd have won that game. So I think a few Wolves fans took a sigh of relief, really, that you did actually lose that. But still, if you do beat us Friday, we are just hoping we're not going to get dragged into it because, like you mentioned, against West Ham at the back, we're so poor. Especially when we play 4 at the back, it's not very good. But if you someone put a gun to your head, mate, and said, "Will Fulham stay up?" Do you think you will?
I think 2 weeks ago I would have said yes. Before the Villa game, I would have said yes. Right now, I think we've lost 3 in a row. The last, we've lost to Villa, we lost to Leeds, we lost to Man City. And okay, the Man City game, you kind of expect to lose that one, but the goals we conceded in that game were disappointing goals to concede just because they all came from mistakes. Tashin Adarabioyo made a mistake against Villa on Sunday, which cost us the second goal. And I don't know, we haven't got the momentum anymore, which we did have a little while ago, coming off the back of wins at Everton and Liverpool away. So at home, we've won 2 games all season. The only teams we've beaten at home all season are Sheffield United and West Brom, the 2 teams below us. So our home form's just been terrible, and I don't know whether that's more to do with the fact that there's nobody in the ground or what it is, because our home form generally we've relied on in the past. I don't want to say we're going to go down, so I'm going to say if I've got a gun to my head, I'll say we're going to do it, but it's not with a great deal of confidence, I have to say.
Yeah, when I watched you against Liverpool, and after watching that game, I thought you were really good. I know Liverpool were struggling a bit at the time, but I honestly thought you had a really good chance. But we're preparing for this. I had a look at your run of form, and obviously you haven't won since then in the league, have you? So that surprised me a little bit. What's your opinion on Scott Parker? Are you a big fan of Scott Parker as manager?
Yeah, I do like him, but you know what it's like and how fickle you can be when your team's struggling. And as soon as you have a run of a few results, especially sort of around the New Year sort of time, you start thinking, well, where are the wins going to come from then? Is now the time to pull the trigger and bring somebody else in and try and change it? But we did that 2 years ago. We did it and brought in Claudio Ranieri for Djukanovic. And then Ranieri lasted 3 months, and then Scott Parker came in. And when Scott Parker came in that season, in all fairness, he breathed new life into that team, and it was a poor team, a team that had really struggled to keep clean sheets and win games. But all of a sudden, once we were relegated, we then won the next 3 games, and he ended up getting the job off the back of it. We lost at your place 1-0 towards, I think it was the second from last game of the season that year, and then we lost at home to Newcastle on the last day. And it was a poor finish to the season in the end. But last season he employs these tactics where even if we're playing a lesser team, or he did last season anyway in the Championship, if we're playing a lesser team and we're winning 1-0, then he'll chuck on an extra defender and just see the game out, which kind of makes sense in a way. But against teams that you could really, really turn the screw on and take to the cleaners, you just kind of think, why don't we just go for another goal and try and really beat this team? So that's a frustration. But this season, he's evolved as manager. And we started off trying to play the same way that we played in the Championship, and it just wasn't working. We were conceded too many goals. We were losing games. And we ended up becoming this counter-attacking team, which is why Mitrović ended up missing out quite a bit, to be honest, because he's not necessarily the quickest player in the world. But it started to work for us, and we won at Leicester, and we just started looking like a better unit. But that being said, we've only won 5 games all season. So is that his fault? I think it's a combination of a lot of things, to be honest. But I see him developing as a manager all the time, and he seems to learn from his mistakes. And even if we went down this season, I'd like to see him get another chance in the Championship. Yeah.
So in terms of your starting lineup, you've got one of our ex-players who absolutely loved Cavallero, and you've got the kid who was at Sunderland on that documentary. Is it Madger? Is that how you pronounce it?
Josh Madger,
They come off the bench, didn't they, against Villa, I believe. Do you reckon they'll get a start, or do you think it'll be the same team as that you played?
I think if Lookman's injured, then I think Cavallero will play undoubtedly, because he came on for him the other day. And Cavallero's been playing as centre forward for half this season, and he's been rubbish. But he's been playing, he's been playing that role because he's quick. But he fluffs his line in front of goals. He's in front of goal. He's not got much composure, kind of in and around the area. But you give him the ball on the edge of the box, and he cuts in on his right from the left hand side, and he'll bend one into the top corner. He scored that same goal probably 3 or 4 times for us in the Championship last season. But Josh Madger, no, I don't think he'll start. He did start a few games when he first signed, but now Mitrović has scored and he's back in form and he's in the side. And we tend to play Mitrović up front on his own, maybe with kind of 3 players sat behind him. So you're probably looking at Bobby Reid, Loftus-Cheek, and Lookman or Cavallero, depending on whether or not Lookman's fit.
Brilliant. Just to finish off then, mate, a score prediction. What would you go for if you had to pick?
Well, we can't score, and we're not very good at keeping clean sheets in the last few games either, but something's got to give, and if we're going to stay up, then something's going to have to change. So I'll say 2-1 Fulham.
Oh, brilliant. I'll tell you what, I actually think it'd be 2-1 Fulham too. But anyway, Matt, thank you so much for talking to the 77 Club, and best of bad luck for Friday night.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers, Harry.
Cheers,